Politically peaked. We're back. First PMQs of 2023. It's already all mad, but let's see what go on. So, question 1. Keir Starmer asked why the government haven't spoken to the unions, as the nurses and paramedics and ambulance service said if they spoke to them, they wouldn't strike. The fact that they have been on strike means that the government in general didn't speak to them. Rishi's reply was that the government is open to constructive dialogue with unions and follows the recommendations of the Independent Review Board, Pay Review Board, who follow the government guidelines that the government set out for them, so there's only so much they can do. He then attacked Labour for having no policy, which is like a code for plan. It's like, hey, you ain't got no plan on this. They like to say that a lot on strikes, and for not supporting the minimum safety legislation, which is the same legislation that would mean people are forced to work on strike days and will be fired if they don't work on strike days. He finished by saying that Labour is controlled by the unions, but there's a clip of the union bosses speaking to a select committee being asked if the Labour Party controls them in any way, and the leaders of the unions in question all laugh. So that's Mick Lynch and a couple of other guys, the main people from the railway sector that are striking at the moment. The bosses of those unions were in a select committee now, be answering questions in front of MPs. One of the MPs said, yeah, are you controlled by the Labour Party? They all started laughing because there's no connection at all. Keir says that the government went from clapping the nurses to sacking the nurses and bringing in new laws that will mitigate their failure in managing the NHS. The Transport Secretary and the Education Secretary said it won't work and that it shouldn't apply to teachers because it's not going to work if everyone's going on strike every minute. How is this going to work? He then asked why do patients wait longer under the Conservatives, as from 2010 to 19, the NHS waiting list doubled before anyone knew what COVID was. The waiting list was mad before COVID, so how are you going to say it's COVID every minute? Rishi says the strike legislation is a life-saving law and the International Labour Organization supports it in various European countries, which is ironic given the Brexit rhetoric about being different from the EU and doing our own thing outside of the EU. Question 3. The NHS problems are the Tories' fault, not COVID, and they have had the service in managed decline. The waiting list is 7.2 million, so what's the goal? Pre-COVID at 4.6 or the last Labour government at 2.3 million? Like Rishi's saying, yeah, he wants to bring down the waiting list, but what's your target for bringing it down? You're just saying you want to bring it down to what exactly? Because before COVID, it was 4.6, which is mad. The last Labour government is 2.3, which is mad, but it's not as mad as it is now. Rishi blames COVID again in response, but says they have a clear plan, which is what's the plan? Qualifies as attack on Labour by saying that the CEO of the Nuffield Health said that Labour's plan won't work. So that's like almost like a confirmation bias, because one other person is saying that your plan will work, or saying that Labour's plan won't work. That means that it's okay to attack it when you haven't even got a plan yourself. That's doing anything. Keir says the government can't say when or by how much the waiting list will come down, and that there's nothing beneath all the talk. He's saying all this stuff, but when you actually dig down into the detail, there's nothing there. That's what Keir's saying, which is true, because he's saying he's got a plan, but what is it? What are you going to do? Last month, December 2022, 1.4 million people were waiting to get an appointment with a GP, waiting 4 weeks to get an appointment. Under the last Labour government, you might wait 2 days to get an appointment. So is that the goal for the government, to get back to that? Rishi couldn't say nothing. Rishi's now saying for question 4 that 2-year waits have been eliminated, 18 months waits are being on track for elimination, and 52 weeks as well. And there'll be more services for the community and more health services in the community. He then attacks Labour for flip-flopping on outsourcing within NHS, which is actually more about outsourcing some services to deal with the waiting list. They're not doing that anymore once the waiting list is down to back to the post-Labour government level. So if it's back down to 2.3, they might stop doing that. But now they need to use it to get the waiting list down. Keir then references Rishi dodging a question about if he uses the NHS and having a GP, and that if he is now registered with an NHS GP, he can experience having to wait for over an hour at 8 a.m. to get an appointment. Wants to know if cancer patients will be able to get guaranteed cancer specialist appointments. There are 50,000 people waiting to see specialists. Under the last Labour government, it was guaranteed that they'll see someone within 2 weeks, but now, when will they get certainty? Rishi again blames COVID for the backlog and invokes the Johnsonism during the COVID years. Boris would say if the government listened to Keir, the country would still be in lockdown, but it's tired now, and the pandemic is over, according to the government. Claims that the cancer diagnosis is terrifying, but it's actually more terrifying that you don't know when an ambulance will come, and that in Canada, America, and Australia, blue light strikes are banned. So, like, the ambulance services can't go on strike. The police already can't go on strike. Keir says there's never been a minimum service because they broke the NHS, And Rishi made no promises, just saying that one day won't be so bad or get any worse. So what's the plan? If that's what we're saying, is it's not going to get any worse. But that's not really a plan, is it? Rishi attacks Keir for having links to the unions when they don't have any links to the Labour Party. Not the ones that are on strike anyway. And then goes off about, they're delivering for the country and the people and the economy and all that, even though everything's mashed up and you've only been in for 6 weeks. So I don't know what you're delivering. All right, so that was the first PMQs of 2023. The government are doing blame game and Labour are applying pressure. Like I said, it's all mad. So tune in next time because politically, it's peak.